Alright, so the next step, after you've cut out the 3 pieces on the saw, is to determine which piece you want to be the center of your project, the front of the project, and the back of the project. So if I take a look at these, and I look at the grain, look for any deviations, knots, whatever, you can determine which is going to be which. I'm going to choose this one for the front because I think it's maybe the nicest looking grain. And I'm just literally going to write on here, I'm going to write actually right on the top of it. Front. Right there, front. I'm going to determine that this piece here, this is going to be my back, which makes this one the middle. Okay, so I now have my front, middle, and back. What I need to do is take the middle piece out, and we're going to do all the magic and most of the work here on this piece to start with. In order to do that, we're going to need a few tools. I'm going to need a tri-square from the tool cabinet. I'm going to need a compass to draw circles. You may want a tape measure. The other thing that I'm going to use is I have created already an example or template for this. If you have this available to you, this would be helpful. It's not necessary, you don't have to have it, but it would make it easier. This is for the center piece, and then this is the template I have for my front part here. Now, I do have a different phone case, which I won't be able to use. Actually, I'm recording this video on the phone, but I will probably want to adjust. My new phone case is a little bit wider, so I will want to adjust the width to match my phone case. This example is for my old phone situation, my setup. You're going to want to make this match your phone. So if you can see in this, there was one speaker port coming down. You may have 2 speaker ports because your phone may have a fancier surround sound or right and left speaker. You're going to want to make this match whatever your phone situation is. So the first thing you need to do on this particular block is you need to determine which is the top and back, the front and back of this particular piece. And I'm going to take the tri-square, I'm going to measure it, and I see that from the end of the blade to here, it is 9 inches, hopefully, because we cut it to 9, and we're going to mark half of that. So lining this up really good, I'm going to go 4.5. Make sure you have a nice sharp pencil to do this. And then I'm going to measure from the other side 4.5 inches, just to be safe. When you're trying to get perfect centers, you always want to measure from 2 sides. Now I have those lines lined up. They're about the distance, maybe a really thin line apart from each other. So I may not be, measurement may not be super perfect, but it's really close. Then I'm going to draw this line, okay, using the tri-square, pinching against the fat part, the handle of the square. I can pinch that against the material and hold this square, and I should be able to then create a center line. So in order to mark that this is a center line, I'm just going to put a C over the line right on top of it, and that tells you this is directly centered. So everything I do from this line should mirror image itself to the right and to the left. Now, I need to determine what size speaker ports I want to have on this thing. I think a 2-inch hole might look really good. You can do bigger, you can do smaller, within the limitation of the project. You want to leave at least a 1/2 inch of material all the way around. So if this is 3-inch, 2-inch actually should be the largest. So let's see. I think I'm going to try a 2-inch. I usually do them a little smaller, like 1.5 inches, but we're going to do 2 inches this time. So I'm going to go ahead and measure in. If I have a 2-inch hole and I add a 1/2 inch of reveal or wood all the way around it, then to the center of the hole, I need 1 inch plus the 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go 1.5 inches inward from the outside edge to the left and to the right, 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to take and use my square I'm going to put my square against the project. I'm going to put my pencil on the mark, and then I'm going to scoot the square over to the pencil. That way I get that mark exactly where I want it. And I'm going to draw a light vertical mark all the way through the project. I'm going to do the same thing over here on this other one, and then draw that line. So that's helping us locate the center of the circle. Next, I want to figure out top and bottom where the center is. So I'm going to rotate my part here, double check I am 3 inches, so half of 3 is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches from the top, and this needs to be dead center, otherwise it's going to look weird. So now I'm going to mark 1.5 inches from the bottom. It should be the same mark if you have actually made everything correctly, but just in case, you always want to mark from top and bottom. That's a good habit to get into to verify that you're getting everything correct and you're not wasting any material. So now I have a top and bottom mark and a sideways mark, so I know where the center of my holes are going to be. The next thing I need to do is I need to set up the compass so that the pencil from the compass to the tip of the compass is 1 inch. So I'm going to set my square aside here and just kind of hold this up next to it until, line these up till they're looking like 1 inch, which is half of the 2-inch hole that I want. Now you can do this with a different size hole, you don't have to do 2 inches, but that's what I'm going to do for this project. And then we're going to draw that circle. I think that's a good looking size. Okay, so now I have roughly the location of the holes. So now the next thing I need to do is I need to start figuring out where my phone's going to go. And we're going to work off the center point again. I want the phone to come into the project a 1 inch depth. Okay, so I need to put a mark straight down around the center 1 inch. And I'm going to go ahead and use the square for this. From the edge of the project, I'm going to scoot the square tight against this edge. I'm going to scoot it down until it just comes to the mark. When it's at the mark, I can then use the square, if it's held tight against that fence, to draw a line along the bottom. And I am eyeballing 1.5 inches to the right and 1.5 inches to the left of my line, knowing that my phone is about 3 inches. In fact, I'm going to come measure you right now. So let's just see, the case of my phone is actually just over 3 1/4. So if I want a little bit of wiggle room, I probably want 3 3/8. So I need half of 3 3/8, which is the width of my phone, to make this work. Half of 3 is 1.5 inches. Half of 3/8 is 3/16. So I need 1.5 inches plus 3/16, which is 1 11/16. So let's go ahead and mark that. In fact, I'm going to use the flat part of my tape measure to get this really accurate. We're going to go to there, and then we're going to go to there. Then I'm going to use the square again to draw those lines vertically all the way out through the top. I'll let the phone come in and sit in this holder. And I'm going to have to lengthen that bottom line I put on here just a little bit. Okay, so that's a square cut. Now my phone is not totally square. You can slightly round over these corners if you want to, but it's up to you. It's easier to cut it out actually if you keep it square. So now we need to figure out where the speaker port is. That's why I'm going to use this template, because this matches my phone. And I don't have the ability to hold my phone here, but if I had the phone, I would take the phone and hold it into the template here, and I would line up where the speaker is, and I would just draw little marks to figure out where the speaker is. Since I don't have access to mine, I'm going to do that with this template. But you can use your phone for this. So let me show you a little closer what exactly we're doing here. So thus far, I've got my holes put here. I had a center point measured from the edge, from the top and bottom, drew the circle. Then I drew this 1 inch down. I figured out the width that I needed for my phone. I added a wiggle room of about 1/8 of an inch, just so it's not too tight. And then this are the marks that if you set your phone in here, this is where my speaker port comes out. So we need to connect this open space somehow to the holes that are going to come out and project noise. Alright, so this is where you get to be a little bit, creative. You get to decide how you want to do this. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I've had students try all kinds of things to see what's going to make the best acoustical sound. I'm going to connect the bottom of my 2 holes together, and I'm going to try and keep this sound port probably about no more. I'm going to make this one a little narrower. I've made most of them pretty big, but I'm going to make this one narrower, and I want it to actually get bigger as it comes out, like a cone. And so let me do this. I'm going to draw my speaker lines straight down into the area that I'm going to be working in. And then what I'm going to do is I want to measure this up to probably about 3/8. This part I'm just making up. So you can do this, like I said, however you want. There's examples. I'm going to touch the edge of my circle to the spot that opens up here. And as soon as you get this part figured out, what I want you to do is you need to shade. Just how I have this shaded, you need to shade the part you're cutting out. That way you don't get it confused. Okay? So I have a really tight corner here. I'm going to have to be very careful with that corner. In fact, I'm going to probably cut on the bottom side of the line just to be safe. But let me shade this in so you can see which part gets cut out on mine with this design and what part doesn't. Okay? We're going to end up cutting this out using a scroll saw, and we don't want to waste it accidentally cutting out the wrong thing. So here you can see with this design, I'm going to try this. This part here that's shaded is all going to get cut out, and everything that's not shaded is the wood I'm going to leave alone. So that's how I keep track of that. This was another way of doing it. There's a million different ways you can do this. Like I said, you might have 2 speaker ports. This is entirely up to you. This is where you get to be a little bit creative with this project. The next thing that has to be done, though, is you need to take the front, and now that I've decided where these holes are going to be, I need to put 2 holes in the front in the exact same location so that when these are glued together, the whole area actually comes all the way out the project. So I'm going to use the same center lines by holding my blocks together like this on the table, and I'm going to take the square, let's line the blocks up and the square at the same time to the right spot, and I'm just going to transfer that line all the way down. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Transfer that line all the way down. And I really just need the line in the middle, but you can draw it all the way across. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to draw center this way. So let's get this marked for center. Again, center of 3 is 1.5 inches. And if you want to be really accurate, you need to at least check from both sides. My lines are good. And then back to the compass. Find that center mark. Draw that circle. Okay, so now I just have the 2 speaker holes drawn on here. I do not want to mark the same amount of material cut out because I need that pocket for the phone to sit in. So this hole I want to have a little less deep so that there's something for the phone to lean against as it kickstands backwards. Again, I will probably need to put a center mark here to do this accurately, so I'm going to do that now. And you can always, you've done all the math on your first project, so you can use this as your reference really easily. I'm going to take this square and transfer that mark over that I just made. That way it's the same. Because it matching is more important than it being symmetrical at this point. Hopefully this one was measured accurately though. That bottom line came down 1 inch. So on this next line, you could just put a little finger cutout like this one if you have an iPhone. I need to access buttons on my phone because I have a Samsung. So what I'm going to do is have mine come down a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to have it come over, let's say, 1 inch in either direction. So that should give me enough space there to access the buttons. In fact, I think I'm going to go 1.25 inches just to be safe, because I want to be able to control my music while I'm using this thing, but I still want to have some extra material there to hold the phone in place. I don't want it falling out. Okay, so let's check this out now. Again, same thing we did last time. I want you to shade in the area that we're going to cut out. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do on the front, I'm probably going to make this a little fancier. I don't want to keep the square edges on the front of this project, so I'm going to then take my square, the compass, and I'm going to use the back of another block. I'm going to get a radius. Let me bring you a little closer so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to round over this corner. And so I'm going to change the distance of the compass to be a little tighter. See how tight we can get this without it messing itself up. So I don't know where the tip goes to do this. So this is what I need to figure out. I want the radius to stop here. So I'm going to hold these edges together. I'm going to pinch this with one hand so that it can't move. Then I'm going to hold the tip here where I want this to end, and I'm going to put a slight arc. And then I'm going to come over here where I want it to end on this side, and I'm going to put a slight arc. And that intersection point then becomes where the tip goes. So then I can use this to draw a nice arc on my project. Okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Oh, no, I want to do it from up here, right where the seam is, really. And then I'm eyeballing straight down here. I'm going to go about there, so that arc is a nice, clean arc. Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to cut this square, so I'm going to try to erase some of this line so that I remember exactly how to do this when I get to the saw, because it could be a different class day or something like that. You never know. And darken my line again here. So you can kind of see this piece is going to be the front of my project. This little window right here will give me access to get my finger in there and press the screen buttons to stop, play, whatever. And then the middle piece will be cut out like this, so that hopefully the sound will come out of my phone and work down through this little groove and then come out this way and project out these holes all the way through the front of the project. The back doesn't require anything. It's just going to get glued on the back. So hopefully you've done this correctly. If these are all marked out, you're good to go. Get these ready, and then I'll show you guys how to use the drill press and the scroll saw.